For nearly 2 years, something has been bubbling beneath the surface of women's basketball. It wasn't always visible on the stat sheet, it didn't always show up in press conferences, but it was there in the hard fouls, the cold shoulders, the awkward silences, and the debates nobody wanted to have out loud. And this week, Stephen A. Smith finally said the quiet part out loud. Not with a rant, not with theatrics, but with a confirmation that changed everything. Caitlin Clark is no longer just a WNBA player. She's no longer even just the face of women's basketball. She has officially become something much bigger than the league itself. And the WNBA is not going to like what comes next.
Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin.
The moment that triggered this shift didn't happen on a basketball court. It didn't happen during a Fever game. It happened on Christmas Day, when Nike quietly dropped a commercial that made one thing crystal clear. The league no longer controls the narrative. While families were flipping between NBA games and holiday movies, Nike released the From Anywhere campaign, a cinematic, culture-heavy ad designed to build anticipation for Caitlin Clark's upcoming signature shoe set to release in spring 2026. But the real message wasn't the shoe. It was who stood next to her, not WNBA teammates, not legends of the women's game, no Cheryl Swoops, no Diana Taurasi. Instead, Caitlin Clark was placed alongside Travis Scott and the Kels brothers' global cultural figures with audiences that stretch far beyond basketball. That wasn't an accident, that was positioning. Nike wasn't marketing Caitlin Clark as a WNBA star. They were marketing her as a global icon. And Stephen A. Smith immediately understood what that meant. He didn't just defend Caitlin Clark this week, he confirmed what many insiders have whispered for years. Caitlin Clark has already outgrown the league. The validation, the approval, the hierarchy, it no longer applies to her. In Stephen A.'s words, she's now an economy. And once a player becomes an economy, everything changes. The fear inside WNBA locker rooms has never really been about talent. It's never been about shot selection or usage rates. It's been about money. And the numbers surrounding Caitlin Clark are now impossible to ignore. When her initial Nike deal was announced, reported around $28 million over 8 years, it already sent shockwaves through the league. Veterans who had spent a decade grinding through commercial flights and empty gyms suddenly found themselves sharing a league with a rookie who was earning more off the court than entire rosters combined. But that number, according to multiple industry insiders, it was just the starting point. New projections suggest Caitlin Clark's signature shoe line alone could generate upwards of $150 million within its first 3 years. That's not WNBA money, that's Jordan-level conversation. To put that into perspective, the average WNBA salary sits well below 6 figures. The maximum salary doesn't even touch $250,000. Stephen A. Smith didn't call this unfair, he called it reality. And reality breeds resentment. You can't introduce that level of financial separation into a competitive environment and expect everyone to smile about it. Human nature doesn't work that way. And Stephen A. made it clear what people labeled as jealousy last season wasn't random emotion. It was an inevitable response to an unbalanced system. Suddenly, moments from last season hit differently. The excessive physicality, the hard fouls that went beyond basketball plays, the games where Caitlin looked isolated on the floor, the moments where it felt like she was being tested rather than defended. Stephen A. connected the dots. This wasn't about hazing a rookie, it was about power. And now that Nike has gone all in, that power imbalance has only grown. According to Smith, the resentment toward Caitlin Clark isn't going to cool down, it's going to explode. Because now the money isn't theoretical. The commercials are airing. The branding is live. The checks have cleared. And the target on her back just got bigger. But this tension didn't start with Nike. It started long before that with decisions that now look worse in hindsight. Take the Olympic snub. At the time, the explanation was simple. Caitlin Clark needed more experience. She needed time. She needed to earn it. That was the official line. Stephen A. Smith wasn't buying it then, and he's definitely not buying it now. Because while USA Basketball was focused on optics and internal politics, Nike was focused on numbers. While committees debated readiness, corporate America made its decision loud and clear. They didn't just include Caitlin Clark, they built around her. Stephen A. called out the hypocrisy. The same athlete deemed not ready for Olympic marketing is now anchoring a campaign larger than most Olympic pushes combined. The gatekeepers tried to humble her. Instead, they accelerated her rise. And now they're dealing with the consequences. Nike's strategy reveals something the league has struggled to admit. Star power matters. Parity sounds good in press releases, but stars are what drive growth. Ratings, merchandise, media attention, and Caitlin Clark brings all of it. While the WNBA tried to spread attention evenly across teams, Nike went the opposite direction. They bet on the anomaly. Stephen A. Smith described it bluntly. The league tried to play nice, Nike played to win. And that contrast couldn't be more embarrassing. The league treats Caitlin like a rookie who needs to wait her turn. Nike treats her like a once-in-a-generation asset. And once that shift happens, you can't undo it. The signature shoe makes that separation even clearer. The Caitlin 1 Second aren't being launched like a typical WNBA sneaker. Industry analysts are comparing the rollout to legacy basketball launches. Massive inventory, lifestyle appeal, resale expectations, long-term branding, even the logo tells the story. The interlocking C isn't tied to the Indiana Fever, it isn't tied to the WNBA, it's standalone. When you see it, Nike wants you thinking Caitlin Clark, nothing else. Just like the Jumpman became bigger than the Bulls. Stephen A. warned that this is dangerous territory for the league. Because once a player becomes bigger than the Shield, the leverage flips. The league needs her far more than she needs the league. That reality shows up in TV negotiations, sponsorships, and valuations. Stephen A. went as far as to say the next media rights deal will essentially be the Caitlin Clark deal. If she vanished tomorrow, the league's valuation would take a serious hit. That's not hate, that's math. And this is where the next season gets fascinating. Because now the league faces an impossible balancing act. Protect Caitlin too much and risk alienating players. Don't protect her enough and risk damaging a multi-$100 million asset. Stephen A. hinted that tighter whistles are coming, more protection, more awareness from the league office. And if that happens, the resentment doesn't disappear, it intensifies. Superstar calls change locker room dynamics fast. The inclusion of the Kels brothers in the Nike campaign was another strategic masterstroke. It wasn't random, it was a signal. By associating Caitlin Clark with the NFL's biggest personalities, Nike was telling casual fans she belongs on the biggest stage in American sports. Not niche, not regional, big league. That message infuriates purists who want the WNBA to remain insular, but it excites everyone who wants the sport to grow. Stephen A. made his stance clear. Growth requires discomfort. And Caitlin Clark is the discomfort. The psychological aspect of this can't be ignored either. Stephen A. pointed out that guarding someone worth 100 times more than you messes with your head. It changes motivation. It changes aggression. Some players rise to it, others lash out. That's why Smith believes next season will be the most physical environment Caitlin Clark has ever faced. Not because players hate her, but because the stakes are now real. This isn't about hype anymore. This is about power. Nike didn't just sign Caitlin Clark. They crowned her. And in doing so, they exposed every unresolved tension inside the WNBA. Stephen A. Smith isn't celebrating that reality. He's warning about it. Because history shows us how this story usually ends. The establishment resists the anomaly. They question it, they challenge it, they try to contain it, and eventually, the anomaly wins. The NBA had Jordan, golf had Tiger. The WNBA now has Caitlin Clark. The only question left is whether the league adapts or fights its own future. Because after this week, there's no going back.